Gravity locked. The engines fired a deceleration burst, and the automoon arced into the ancient star system, streaming debris behind it. Commander Yofsaron was determined to shake off their pursuers, but they were too obvious a target. Their only hope was a wormhole on the other side of the neutron star. The interstellar war had been raging for eons. It wasn't about conquest or race or even mineral wealth. It was simply about territory. Multiple races wanted multiple territories and had divided the galaxy into ever-widening segments, fighting over the ownership of groups of star systems, desperately wanting to have the greatest collection of stars and planets. Their advanced level of technology meant they could easily move entire star systems, widening the galaxy and taking over more space. But the devices needed to shift planets were, of course, planet-sized, so many armadas simply fitted out planets with hyper-engines, using the tectonic movement and EM fields to power them, and converting matter to energy for emergency deceleration. Or they used Berigines, ships that were able to burrow into any celestial body and control it. Even so, for all their intelligence, the lust for territorial control overrode their common sense. The whole war was illogical. By the time one ship destroyed another in various gravity wells across the galaxy, governments, planets, and entire civilizations had risen and fallen. Individuals would trick opponents into slow time fields and simply leave, bringing back an armada before the hapless victim literally had time to realize. Whole armies could be wiped out in seconds or years, depending on your relative viewpoint. The commander scanned the details of the comet that was following them. They'd been fired on several times before realizing it was a Berigine, and had started the engines at considerable cost. The sudden G-force had collapsed one of the city buildings inside the moon, killing hundreds of alien families. They couldn't shoot back as their weapons would vaporize the surrounding comet, releasing the hidden ship. Once the ship was released, it would then simply bury itself in their moon and take control of it. Just then, the automoon's AI confirmed a high probability route. The commander confirmed it and turned to his subordinates.
All right. This is it. We're going to take the moon through the wormhole. If we're quick, the Physik won't know we didn't take the long way, and they'll head into the gravity well of the neutron star.
A holographic image displayed above the circular room, and many of the aliens on board stared at it worriedly. The barely visible neutron star spun coldly and had taken no sides. If they went too close, it would be they that got stuck in the slow time field, not their enemy, and their homeworld would have aged and died by the time they got out.
The gravity and electromagnetic fields of the star are stronger than expected,
A young subordinate said, pointing at a fluctuating line.
This suggests it might actually be a quark star. Will our instruments be affected by the field?
The commander nodded.
Very good. They will, which is why we're going to coast in.
His team looked horrified. With everything turned off and heading to a wormhole, they only had their initial thrust based on current gravity strength calculations. If the quark star's gravity fluctuated, they were dead. The commander saw their fear.
It's the only way. If our enemy gets to us, we wouldn't survive anyway.
He walked over to one of the crew who had a tentacle on the main AI navigation panel.
Ready?
Yes, sir. Final thrust activated. Shutting down systems in 8-7.
The commander took his seat.
We'll know soon enough.
The hologram faded away. The lights dimmed. Not far from them, Yufsaron knew a sphere of different space flickered. They were following a parabolic path, and would meet with the sphere of space and time soon. Unfortunately, at this point, there weren't any more options. It was the only plan he could come up with to protect the millions of citizens living inside his moon. Creaking sounds echoed through the control chamber as internal sections groaned under the star's gravity. He prayed to the universe that the quark star would trap their enemy. He prayed that they would be safely through the wormhole soon, and he prayed that it wouldn't take long to rejoin their home star systems. He just wished he knew what was on the other side of that wormhole. General Shagrax slammed a scaly fist on one of her consoles. The automoon was making it to a wormhole. She had had one chance, and she had failed. Her last shot had just missed, and it had been enough for them to accelerate away. Her autocomet had better flexibility than the moon, but it still required some skill to shoot across such wide distances. She hadn't considered the mass of a nearby rock would divert her volleys. They'd entered the star system, gaining on their enemy, but still too far for another more accurate shot. Her computer had warned her of the neutron star, and she'd surrounded her Berigine in a gravity-dampening field. She couldn't believe her enemy would try such a simple trick to defeat her. Even so, energy fluctuations coming from the wormhole suggested her comet wouldn't make it through. Then again, the moon might not make it through either. But, just in case, she had fired an EM pulse. At this range, the expanding field should reach the Automoon just as it entered, disrupting the wormhole and perhaps, with any luck, closing it as they passed through, severing them in half. One less enemy moon for her to worry about. She ordered her pilot to blast course correction volleys, then explode some hydrogen to create an escape arc. Any faster deceleration, or any tighter turn, and her comet would simply break apart. Perhaps her enemy's trick was a good one. She had to give him that.
Ma'am?
Asked a subordinate tentatively.
What?
The general spun and focused her eyes on her underling.
Our systems are now detecting that this is not a neutron star. It is actually a quark star. Our original gravity predictions were incorrect. Also, we haven't received confirmation of the EM pulse reaching its destination.
It took a moment for the general to process this information, her yellow eyes flicking back and forth as the pieces fell into place. Then her face filled with horror. If the pulse could not be detected as having reached its destination, it meant their relative position in time had already slowed. They were now in a field that was too slow for the signal to come back and inform them.
Shifting out of the ergosphere,
said another subordinate. The general spun to look at him.
But a quark star doesn't have an ergosphere.
Sorry, ma'am. One set of instruments is reading that it is a quark star, another, a black hole, and a third that it is a neutron star. We're receiving different signals depending on the relative time location.
But that means the quark star is going to turn into a black hole?
Moments to black hole formation,
said the subordinate. Perhaps there was a chance. They were still in their own relative field, not yet completely affected by the mashup of time zones outside. They could take some action to escape before time caught up with them.
Course correction. Follow the Automoon through the wormhole.
The comet wouldn't survive, but their ship would. Hydrogen blasters exploded more material, and the comet slowly turned as it sped. The general swiped a scaly claw into an updating Starscape hologram, retrieving telemetry.
It's not fast enough.
She quickly scrabbled over to a high authority panel, one only she could use.
Stand by for demerge.
Behind her, subordinates quickly changed stations, called up new schematics, and began reading the new measurements. General Shagrak slammed her claws onto the panel, and a grinding, cracking, breaking sound echoed through the circular chamber. Outside, the comet housing fell away, losing valuable fuel but gaining flexibility, revealing a saucer-shaped craft with 4 spheres underneath, and a dome on top. The moment they were free of the comet, the sphere sets began spinning. The general activated the energy field, and the craft left the comet, matter streaming away from it as it leapt into space.
Speed increasing. On course for wormhole. Black hole confirmed. Moments until gravity wave impact 2, 1.
The circular ship flitted across space, shooting for the wormhole just as time caught up with them. Suddenly the moon and wormhole were gone. The Automoon felt the blast of the changing star and tumbled into the electromagnetic maelstrom, turning and spinning on its axis.
We may not get through to the right era,
said Commander Yofsaron, gritting his teeth as gravity increased. He hoped his city would survive, but he could already feel radiation burns. This was not going to be pretty. The moon spun and shook, jostled and rolled like a ball down a pipe. Just when the commander thought they wouldn't make it, the moon blasted back into normal space, careening across the orbital plane of a white-yellow dwarf star.
Sir, course suggests direct collision with a G-type star. Sir, we can't get the engines back online.
The commander saw the course projection. At this trajectory and velocity, they would reach the heat limit of the moon within a few days. It would be months before the moon was absorbed by the star, but they would all be long dead before then. He couldn't see a way out. 1 million people, and only enough lifeboats for 1/10 of them. It would take too long to build more.
Sir, this is a new star system. Protoplanets everywhere. We're heading directly for 1.
Seriously?
Dead on course,
the subordinate said grimly. Perhaps they could survive a collision with the protoplanet, and if they couldn't get the engines online, perhaps that collision would stop them from falling into the white star. But it would mean they would never be able to move the Automoon again.
Time to impact.
Half a day, sir.
Right, everyone. Priorities. Get the engine online within a quarter of a day. If you cannot, we must alert the city and get ready for impact.
His team set to work, scheduling tasks for many others. Thousands of personnel took flitters and flyers to the engines and began replacing damaged parts. Parts were recreated in atomic printing factories, couriered by drone, installed by technicians, and tested by engineers, each piece taking just moments from print to installation. But it was not enough. Much of the connecting networks had been fused by the wormhole travel, and conductivity was a mess. The repairs enabled some minor thrusters to come online, but they now knew the major engines would take years. They had run out of time.
Alert! All residents of the moon. Please note that we will be impacting a small protoplanet in just a few moments. Please brace yourselves for impact. We hope to survive, but as we've survived so many near misses already, I'm not holding much hope. Please say goodbye to your loved ones, just in case.
Yuvsaron just hoped the protoplanet was hard enough to change their course, but soft enough to ensure their survival. A small white star spun in the cold vacuum of space, matter and gases collecting in multiple disks across its ecliptic. 10 protoplanets spun fast, collecting rocks and dust, growing and forming spherical bodies. All burned with the fire of the star's radiation. All shone with the power of their internal energy. A molten planet had formed, its mass attracting more rocks to its surface. Comets, asteroids, and meteors continued to slam into it, attracted by its growing gravity. Suddenly, a massive body plunged through it, disrupting the formation, exploding the ball into so many broken pieces, spraying plumes of lava into space. The automoon's mountain ranges were sheared off in the collision, exploding chunks of matter flying back into the protoplanet's gravitational pull, more columns of lava exploding from both surfaces. The shock wave smashed several buildings in the force field protected Undercity, and the control center personnel were thrown to the floor, gravity dampeners failing. Just as the moon broke completely free of the protoplanet, its forward momentum was taken over by the gravity of the mass, and its course changed. Enough to avert a star plunge, not enough to avoid it entirely. The moon spun slowly, and Commander Yuvsaron struggled back to his seat, staring at the information. For most of their journey, their Undercity had been positioned behind the mass of the moon. Now the moon was shifting their city to the front. One forward collision from all the spinning chunks of matter at this speed, and the city wouldn't survive. He had to shift the city to be behind again. He had to divert them from their spiraling orbit, and he had to hide them somewhere.
Can we fire something, anything, to set up a stable orbit around the protoplanet?
Some parts of the engine are almost ready. Basic thrust supports.
Get the supports fixed. Fire each time our spin points them towards the star. Lock the city to face the protoplanet.
Messages were sent into the Undercity, and surviving soldiers suited up and threw themselves into the thrust chambers, finalizing connections, making sure fuel lines were stable, then sacrificing themselves with the explosions. More flew in, ensuring correct fuel mixes, restabilizing warped metal, and more died. The thrusters were the size of cities, the explosions like massive caldera volcanoes. There wasn't any time to escape each destructive burst. Each thrust slowed the spin of the automoon and reduced its speed. Each explosion decelerated the moon further, allowing the closer gravity of the protoplanet to slow its path. Eventually, the spinning moon stabilized and thrust explosions were reduced, channeling the power into minor course adjustments.
Orbit stable,
said one of the subordinates.
The moon is now gravitationally locked in place, and our Undercity is now facing away from incoming bombardment.
The commander breathed a sigh of relief. They were safe, but not without massive loss of life. He gave thanks to the brave aliens who had given their lives to save them, their ashes now merging with the protoplanet below. He wished them a safe journey to their next lives. He sadly sank into his seat. It wasn't over yet. Minor course adjustments would continue as the automoon adapted to the changing shape and gravity of the protoplanet. They would hide in the circumstellar disk while they built escape ships, and then, when everything was ready, they'd find another wormhole and leave for their home system. The moon would stay. He was confident that their pursuer would be trapped in the slower time field for a while yet, but there was always the chance the autocomet would find them again. If not it, then certainly others of the war. He would build automated security systems to destroy them, however many millennia in the future it would take them to find the moon. He would also stay with a small group of people to maintain the moon for a while after the survivors leave. Captain Yuvsaron had no doubt that they would be there for thousands of orbits around this star, at the very least. He would do what was necessary to protect their homeworld, however long it took.
Reopen it,
yelled the general, staring at the now empty space, feeling the energy changing around her. Their systems were struggling to compensate for the increasing gravity waves.
Ma'am, the EM pulse relocated the wormhole to the center of the quark star, pulling in additional matter and causing it to collapse into a black hole.
Perhaps the automoon?
Readings confirm the automoon made it through to a young star system about 60 light-years away before the wormhole collapsed.
The general paced back and forth.
Scan the area. Find a route to that system. We'll take the long way. We'll find them and destroy them.
Her underling frowned as he looked closely at the information spinning in front of him.
Ma'am, I'm very sorry to say this, but the moon has been gone for a long time.
The general spun to look at him.
How long?
The AI is having difficulty calculating. The years keep increasing.
Physicos years?
She knew it was a vain hope.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Galactic years.
The rest of the army sank into their shells. There was no winning now. The war must have ended eons ago. The general flicked a claw and zoomed further into the now updating information stream. Their homeworld, Physakos, no longer there. The star had gone supernova long ago, taking out the entire system. There was nothing.
Ma'am, the neutron quark star became a black hole approximately 16 galactic years ago, about 4.5 billion Physakos years ago.
We've been locked in a gravitational time dilation for 4.5 billion years?
The general had never hyperventilated before, but she was beginning to understand what it must be like. She took a deep breath and steadied herself.
Explain.
Her underling called up some hollow statistics and waved them into the air above.
We weren't close enough to the event horizon, and we didn't burn up in the accretion disk. We were simply locked in a time bubble created by its creation. A very slow one.
He called up another and pointed at the numbers.
Our course correction took over 4 billion years to complete while we remained in orbit. Even if the light of our comet could have been seen, no one would have come near a black hole to investigate. I have some good news, ma'am,
said another underling.
While time had been slow for us, our time bubble built up quite a rotational speed around this star. We've been traveling at close to the speed of light. The course correction has already thrown us out of the system, and we're heading to another about 40 light-years away. Relativistic time would be 7 years at our current speed. But, of course, we simply need another wormhole to get there faster.
Why are you telling me this?
Asked the general despondently.
It's the new position of the system that the automoon went to.
The subordinate called up a star system with 9 planets, then zoomed into one that was the third from the star. Zooming further, she saw a pockmarked grey moon, orbiting at a wide distance, much older and more damaged than the one she had seen before, but still recognizable. The general leapt to her feet.
The enemy might still be inside. The last of them. We need to wipe them out before they start another galactic war.
Yes, ma'am.
Set course for that star system. Do whatever you can to increase our speed. Search for any wormholes we can manipulate to get us there faster.
Yes, ma'am.
Her subordinate set to work. She would get her revenge on her enemy. And if they were dead, then she'll get her revenge on their descendants. Nothing in the galaxy could stop her now. Eufceron's hibernation capsule woke him again, the temporal stasis pod having kept him safely outside of time for another 1,000 years. He eagerly called up the latest information on the planet below. When the planet had formed and begun showing signs of life, Eufceron had wanted to stay and monitor the development of this world. He felt responsible as he thought that there was a faint chance the enemy would still find them. With so many slow time fields in the galaxy, there were enemies still fighting a war that had ended in other parts eons ago. He also felt responsible as he was sure all the dead aliens that had ended up there after settling into orbit had kick-started the bacteriological life on the planet, a lot earlier than the random panspermia seeding that happens throughout the galaxy. He'd seen strange water creatures, giant lizard creatures, and now there were hairy bipedal shapes starting civilizations. As civilizations had risen, he and his team had visited the planet and its inhabitants thousands of times, coaching, training, and educating successive generations to be ready for war. As each new civilization had destroyed itself and risen again, he had tried again. Sometimes it took eons for a group to be ready. Sometimes they already were. He had visited many of them in his one-person rocket ship using hydrogen distilled from the moon's surface. With his ability to fly, they thought him a god, and they called his ship a fire-breathing dragon. The last time he had visited, the natives had wanted to know about other gods, but he had had to tell them the truth. He was now the only one of his kind left in their star system. His ancient computer loaded a summary of the past 1,000 years of monitoring, and he swiped through the images, admiring how they had advanced. The hominids had built pyramidal structures amongst the vegetation, roads through the mountains, and other structures using the sound levitation and rock melting technology he'd given them. But then he saw something that took his breath away. An advanced city had been built. The natives had harnessed electromagnetism, giving them glow rocks to power their homes, gravity-dampening carpets to travel and deliver items, and even a system to control the weather. He felt a tear come to his old eyes as he could finally acknowledge that his children had grown up. The weather control system had confirmed it. The natives had advanced far enough that he could now leave them in peace. He no longer needed to protect this world. He checked the status of the installations on the Automoon, designed to shoot down asteroids, keep the moon in orbit, and maintain a protective radiation field around the planet. Everything was functioning perfectly. He checked the weapon system in the north of the planet that would not only vaporize any asteroids or meteors, but also any enemies that might want to take over the world. This was working perfectly too. After the destruction of the first advanced humanoids 66 million orbits ago, he wanted to make sure it could never happen again. Yuvseron stood quietly in the moon chamber, the city now dust, the space just an endless empty cavern, apart from his single stasis pod and rocket ship. It was finally time to go. He activated the dissipate button, and the stasis pod's atomic bonds fell apart. He did the same to the rocket ship. Then he smiled wistfully, pressed a button on his belt, and turned to dust. General Shagrak was excited. They had been able to increase their speed even closer to the speed of light, reducing relative time into mere months. They were now approaching the star system where their enemy had hidden. With billions of years having passed, she had expected them to spread to all the planets in the star system and begin waging war with others nearby. She requested detailed scans of all the planets as they got closer, but the information was not what she expected. Asteroids around the star in a broken ring suggested a planet had been destroyed millions of years ago. A planet nearby had lost its atmosphere as a result of a piece of the former's collision. She could see the gouge on the red planet and the impossibility for life. Neither the asteroids nor the red planet had been fitted with planet-moving technology, so perhaps they hadn't spread. She would check every planet to be sure.
Ma'am, the planet we're looking for is on the other side of the star. A primitive race. No spaceflight technology detected. Course correcting now.
Excellent. Is the Automoon still in orbit?
Yes? You found them, ma'am.
The general raised her arms triumphantly. She would destroy their moon base and take her revenge on the world below. Their saucer arced towards the location, using the star's gravity to slow them down. Eventually, after more deceleration maneuvers, they made it into the moon's orbit. Asteroid vaporizing technology was active, but at their slow speed they wouldn't be detected. Even so, she disabled the equipment to be sure. She scanned and found a heavier mass section facing the planet.
Land there. That must be the Undercity.
The ship slowly drifted down to the location, and the suited general bounced over to the triangular door on the surface of the Automoon. The door was open. She pulled out her detection equipment as more of her team lined up behind her, guns ready. There were no traps, no security devices, no locks, no guards. Where were they? She clambered through the door and turned her light on. The tunnel went deeper, and the general, with 2 underlings, followed the curve into the Automoon. Eventually they made it to a dark, open chamber. The general sent a signal to activate whatever power was available, and the cavern lit up, revealing nothing.
What?
The general whispered. She could see block lines and spherical areas where buildings had once stood, but now there was nothing.
Ma'am, we're detecting the remains of atomic printing systems. Perhaps they converted everything into escape ships?
The whole city?
The subordinate was quiet. He knew that the general would be disappointed.
I don't even have anything to blow up.
The general kicked a rock and it bounced away from her.
This is a bitter victory.
Ma'am, the planet? It's inhabited? Perhaps the descendants are there?
Yes, of course. I will destroy the planet. Back to the ship.
With renewed vigor, the general pushed past her underlings and led the way. She would fly over the northern part of the planet, where there were a number of wide holes, and drop bombs in them, rupturing the world from within. It would be a fantastic finale. The flying saucer lifted off the moon and headed for the planet. The ship had focused on the largest and deepest hole, and would reach there in moments. The general stood proudly, with victory shining in her yellow eyes, as the holoscreen showed the blue-green planet coming closer. She was confident that she would finally win this war. The force field strained at the friction created by their velocity, and the ship burned across the sky, sending shockwaves through the upper atmosphere.
Ma'am, detecting weapon systems.
What? but they can't have.
Locking on.
An underling called up the image, an installation exploding from a lake, massive energy tubes on spherical turrets spinning to track the ship.
Destroy it!
The general yelled.
Our weapons are offline due to re-entry.
Evasive maneuvers, change course.
Surface weapons have fired.
The general watched as the massive yellow bolt sped towards her ship. There was nothing they could do. The war was over for all of them. Just before the ship vaporized, she briefly wondered what the natives would make of all this. Perhaps one day that would begin their own space war, starting the cycle all over again. She was sad she wouldn't be able to join in.